Bitcoin getting rejected on the daily chart. You see this red line, that is the 200-day moving average. It's an area we've been talking about. It's that last hurdle for Bitcoin, immediate rejection. And at first glance, it looks terrible. It looks like we're getting ready to maybe see new lows, lower lows on Bitcoin and crypto charts. But I wanted to mention two things, and I'm going to talk about these two things in the video. Number one, this rejection is very normal. And number two, this actually might be the most bullish thing that could possibly be happening right now. That sounds crazy. That's not a clickbait type of thing to say. I'm going to show you an actual example, a very relevant example of what I mean by that and why this could be an amazing setup for Bitcoin. So hit the subscribe, hit the like. On the way in, let's jump into the video. Let me just mention something. Before we dive into all of these charts, the short-term price action of cryptos, and we're even going to look at the next 60 days for altcoin markets, incredibly important as well. I'm going to explain why. I want to zoom out for just a moment. The Fed jacked up interest rates at the fastest pace in history and sold nearly $2 trillion off their balance sheet, yet stocks are still at all-time highs. Today, we get a regime change back to cheap, easy money flowing through the system. This was Anthony Pompliano a couple days ago. What do you think happens next? One more. Where is the $6 trillion in money market funds going to go when interest rates come down? The money sloshing around financial markets is only just beginning. I have to zoom out on the bigger story here because we're about to zoom in on Bitcoin price on the short term. There's rejection. Maybe we go lower. This short-term narrative and this short-term emotion that's in the markets can be very distracting. But where's all the money going to go as interest rates come down? And I just saw this. This is Matt over at Bitwise, about to orange pill a room of financial advisors that manage over $1 trillion at the Barron's Top 100 conference. This was hours ago. He posted this. And a headline from Forbes. BlackRock reveals it's quietly preparing for a $35 trillion Federal Reserve dollar crisis with Bitcoin predicted to spark a sudden price boom. Do we see what's happening on the zoomed out? Do you see what's happening in terms of how early this is what I think. This is my opinion. But we are incredibly early. And there is going to be a ton of money pouring into crypto. So I just want to keep that in mind as we dig into these charts. But let's dig into these charts. Let's talk about this rejection. And we have macro context that is very fun, actually. If you remember yesterday's video, we talked about how this MACD, the histogram, was starting to turn back to the upside, approaching zero, maybe turn green soon on the weekly. We have the MACD line in blue, getting ready to cross above that red signal line. And we went back to October and we said, you know what? Very similar thing was happening then. We got the MACD crossing above the signal line then. We had a very similar bottoming out in the slower moving momentum oscillator, this RSI right here. And most notably, we had Bitcoin breaking above and away from that green line, the 20-week moving average. All of these things are currently happening on the Bitcoin chart. We talked about that. We're actually going to zoom in right here and discuss the rejection that's happening right here on Bitcoin. So I'm going to actually stay on this same daily chart. I'm just going to go back. We're going to go back to October 2023, and I want to show you when Bitcoin was making that move above the 20-week, those oscillators were starting to turn around on the macro. This is basically what that move looked like, the pivot to the upside and the breakout. Notice what happened here. Bitcoin broke above the 20, broke above the 50. The 20 moving average crossed above the 50. We got some rejection at the 200. And if you notice, in a pretty scary area for Bitcoin, right? Because, Bitcoin made its way out of the bear market and kind of got put in the swing low, tried to break out of that, put in another swing low in the same area. And then here it is, just kind of hanging out in outer space. It got rejected at the 200-day moving average, looking bad. And from that swing high to the swing low, around 7% or so. And then what happened? Bitcoin exploded to the upside. And if you look at the RSI in that move, the RSI was just making some nice higher highs, higher lows. You see this consolidation, just another retrace on the RSI before exploding into overbought. That was a necessary move, a necessary consolidation. Let's go to the move now. We have something very similar playing out. The 20-day has not even crossed the 50-day moving average just yet. That's the move we're waiting for. We're getting rejection at the 200-day. And the setup is so similar to back then. Even if you look at the RSI, the slower moving momentum oscillator, we're just seeing this move to the upside. We might have in store for us, maybe over the next week, over the next however many days, some type of consolidation here on the RSI. Now, put aside that example that we just looked at back in October. The chart's lining up so nicely there, but put that aside. We talk about often when we get a 20-day moving average setting up to cross above the 50-day moving average, maybe it hasn't happened yet or it's about to happen, we always look for throwbacks to the area. So with that in mind, and look at the percentage from swing high to that area. It's around 7 to 8%, 7 to 9%. Very similar to the throwback that we had back in October. I really enjoy how charts and historical data, it's not, I don't sit here and I'm saying it's going to repeat exactly the same, but the historical data that we have on these charts and we watch these setups and these patterns and the moving averages and all of this, these things happen often in a repetitive way. And what that does, I mean, at least for me, it teaches me. This is really how I've learned technical analysis, is because there is so much rhythm on these charts and it's human emotion behind these moves. So right now, when markets see resistance at the 200, this could be very much in play, this consolidation to the downside for Bitcoin and crypto markets. Now, I just want to mention, Bitcoin could see support at this Fibonacci that it just broke through, right? So we might kind of retrace into that area and see support somewhere in that range. To give you an idea, is like just above 60,000 up to around 62,000, just above 62,000. So 60 to 62,000 could be a very short-term type of area for Bitcoin to see support. And I just really want to point out to you, if we did get a throwback, this would be a throwback to that triangle that we have on the screen that we've talked about. These lower highs, Bitcoin broke out to the upside. If we're getting resistance here, we might get the throwback. Notice to where that throwback also is. It's just below 60, 58 to 60,000. It's at the 20, the 50-day moving average area. It's the upper trend line. So if that were to happen, it does not mean it's game over. It does not mean Bitcoin's just not going to make the move to the upper trend line. Bitcoin's just not going to break out, because if we zoom out on the Bitcoin chart, the move that we're getting right now in the short term is almost identical to the move that we had back in October. And I want to say this again and again. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to repeat. Bitcoin could fail to make that very bullish move. Whether even today or tomorrow we just keep going, we don't even retrace, or we break to the downside and we see support. That's the move if we're going to fall. And then we bounce to the upside. There's a case that just neither one of those happens and Bitcoin just falls with crypto markets. We're falling back to the triangle and maybe even breaking below this lower trend line. And then we're testing this macro half a year lower trend line here. That can happen. Be prepared for it. But there are many things to watch before we even get there. So that's Bitcoin on the short term. That's what I'm watching for. And who knows? Who knows what markets are going to do today? I think it's probably a good idea to keep an eye on the US dollar currency index. It's a good idea to keep an eye on the stock market. You can just see it's consolidating right now itself with a current daily candle. I want to just mention something on the altcoin charts, because I think we're getting it to this very crucial area. If you notice on altcoin markets, and during the short-term consolidation, I think it will be very notable to actually watch Bitcoin dominance right here. If we even do fall, if cryptos are falling, what's Bitcoin dominance doing? Is are altcoins going to start kind of solidifying their place in this coming parabolic bull run? But going back to the total crypto market cap and altcoins, the discussion of altcoins, you see this purple line where we are right now? To give you context of what that is, last cycle and even the cycle before, that purple line was basically when altcoin markets were breaking a very critical macro swing high. So here's a swing high, and there it is being broken, right? The second purple line is the Bitcoin halving. I gotta mark these so we can see this clearly. But we go to the next cycle. You can see altcoin markets right here breaking this previous swing high. Critical on the macro for that to happen. And then here is the Bitcoin dominance falling. There's altcoin season starting. Now here we are. We're entering that exact time frame. It's around 2 months, maybe just short of 2 months. But now is the time for altcoin markets to really move and crypto markets to move in general. If we want to see it repeat from a time frame perspective, really repeat, I mean, we could fall. It doesn't have to happen. But if we really want to see the consistency from a time frame perspective, stay on track, on this weekly, we will see a continuation. And that's something to look out for. And I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but it is something that I'm looking out for right now. And if you look at it, the 20-week moving average just above where this total crypto market cap chart is. And if you go to Bitcoin, that's exactly what Bitcoin is testing right now as well. And it's actually seeing a bit of, man, it is close, but it's looking like it's struggling at that 20-week moving average. So total crypto market cap, the next 60 days are going to be very telling from a macro data perspective to give us an idea of, are we, from a timeline sense, on track? So if we see this chart continue to the upside, that will be an insane bull indicator for altcoin markets, for altcoin season, because right before that or right after that this is altcoin season, this purple line historically, when it starts. So that could be the ultimate altcoin season indicator. Maybe I'll use that in the title of today's video. I don't know, but let's take a minute, take all of these things, anticipate everything, and just watch crypto markets. So Bitcoin on the zoomed in, you know what to look for. This is what I'm looking for at the very least. Obviously, the bullish break above the 200-day sooner than later is what we want to see. And if it doesn't happen, we know where the throwback supports are, and we'll just continue tracking it. Either way, everybody, I just think crypto in general is very bullish, especially when you start zooming out on all these charts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. Your support means a ton. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.